let me move to, so that was the quick and dirty version of how to change mindsets. And in the case of Vietnam, I'm glad to say we were successful. It took, initially we got some funding from the Cities Alliance to do this basic groundwork. In parallel with that, and just to remind you, at that time I was working with the World Bank, we started to develop a loan in which we did some demonstration projects in 4 cities, but these were reasonably sized. And in the end, 2 million people will benefit in the cities. 850,000 directly will benefit, 850,000 slum dwellers, and another 1.1 or 1.15 million will benefit incidentally, because the slum phenomenon in Vietnamese cities is slightly different from the Indian cities, where I think in Delhi 65% or 70%, or sorry, Mumbai, 65 or 70% of people live in slums. In Vietnam, the proportion is smaller and people are scattered around, but they live in the same sort of degrees of squalor that we see in other cities. And to some extent, it's more difficult to raise them up, to improve the quality of their lives, because it's less economically feasible to improve them. In the way you pick up some of these slum areas, but in the same time, other people benefit. If you're a city authority, you can't take new water mains or new sewers or whatever past middle-class people to reach the slums. Obviously, you have to improve them too. So you have to raise the whole city up. So we used, urban upgrading is a multifaceted, multi-sector and very complex phenomena. My angle is the infrastructure part. And infrastructure is usually a very easy entry point. City authorities are eager to get help with infrastructure. So that allows you a seat at the table and allows you to do many of the other things that are equally important. The security of tenure, which is key to realizing investment from the people who live there themselves. So there are many challenges. One is to get the agreement of the city authorities that the communities themselves can participate, ideally should lead the development process. They themselves should decide what their priorities are and how the improvement should be made. Often you have to go second best and allow them to participate, and then gradually allow that participation to spill over to the fact that they're actually leading. In Vietnam, what the process we set up, they were community upgrading plans that the communities themselves, representatives of communities, had to sign off on. The representative of the communities had to be balanced between men and women. Not such a problem in Vietnam. Women do tend to have a be fairly well represented in societies. It's not the problem that is in many countries. And we also had a wonderful ally in the Women's Union, which is it's a sort of quasi-NGO. It's an organ of the party, but it's pervasive throughout the culture and works very well. That's my 2-minute warning, and I'm about 10% through my presentation. So I'm just going to look through the challenges. Okay, one of the most important things we had was winning the city away from what it considered. It had design standards. For example, if you expand a water supply, people should have 120 litres per day. The poor exist on 15 litres per day. So what's the point? They can't pay for that amount of water. So you have to get the city to agree to a reduced standard. And that goes similarly, roads. You can manage with a 2.5 metre wide road. The city rules probably say it should be 5 meters. So it's negotiating these things. The community, first of all, what will the community be happy with? And then trying to persuade the city that will do for a while. Eventually, you'll raise everything to the standard they want to be, but it has to be done incrementally. So if I want to leave you with one message, it's incremental. The word to think about is incremental. Incremental growth, gradual. And people's lives will incrementally improve. I'll be very happy to answer some questions during the question and answer. Thank you.